right, welcome everybody to another week of the Commanders Week 12 Film Room. Please follow us on YouTube with the Big Doug and Carmi Show. We're here every Tuesday at 4:30 to 5:30. I'm here with my analysts, Nick Ackridge and Mark Bullock. Gentlemen, how you guys doing today?
Pretty good.
Good, yep. Well, as good as you can be after a loss like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, so it's getting tiring, guys, but a third week in a row, we're doing a film breakdown on a loss. Unfortunately, it's probably the biggest loss of the season, in my opinion. A very ugly game for an opponent we should have beat. We're actually going to break down all 22 today and kind of break that down. But Nick, I'm going to start off with you. So ugly game all around. You know, I think on our defense, we allowed Rico Dowdle to kind of have his way with us on the run game. The passing game was kind of inept and it kind of was ugly all across the board. Even though the game got close near the end, it was kind of like Looney Tunes at the end of the game. It just wasn't a pretty game altogether. My question to you is, what are your initial takeaways from that game?
Yeah, I mean, I think gross is the best way to put all of it. It was disgusting, but yeah. I mean, I think the biggest takeaway, we talked about it last week. Like, we didn't have too many concerns with this offense. We kind of highlighted some stuff that was open, and they were just missing on stuff. And I kind of said at the end, if they struggle against the Cowboys, then we're going to have some problems.
Yeah,
and so that's kind of where I am. Getting a little bit more nervous. Watching the film kind of helped me a little bit, kind of seeing some stuff that was there. But yeah, it's starting to get pretty concerning, I would say.
Well, thank you for grounding me. I'm looking forward to watching the film with you guys because I'm a little bit concerned myself because we actually broke it down. We talked about how Cliff Kingsbury's offense was open. There were some plays open for his players, but we weren't necessarily executing. And I'm curious if that's going to be the case going into the film. That's kind of a great segue throwing it over to Mark because I know we're going to be watching your film today. Mark, you know, the offense looked pretty bad. I mean, against the Steelers, we saw some flashes of significance. The Eagles, there were some setbacks, but the Eagles have a great defense. A lot of people predicted a big win in Dallas, but our offense looked pretty inept for 3 quarters. So I'm just curious, what are your initial takeaways from that?
Yeah, they had a lot of struggles getting going and sustaining drives and being the efficient offense that they were earlier in the season. And there was a lot of different reasons for that, and we'll get into those. And for me, it was more of an execution thing. I know everyone wants to point to the cliff. And there was certainly some play calling stuff that you can point to, but as Nick kind of said, that there were still some opportunities, and they didn't quite execute on those. And you know, in a game that ended up being quite close at the end, 1 or 2 of those opportunities go your way, and suddenly you're getting out of it with a win. It wasn't great viewing, but we'll start to get into the film and see exactly why they had some issues.
Absolutely. So obviously numbers don't lie, film doesn't lie. So we're going to jump into it and take a look at what happened this week. One question to throw out at you guys before we jump into the film. Guys, why is Noah Brown our featured wide receiver going into the game? Do you guys have any idea behind that by any chance? I'm asking in jest, but if you guys have any logical reasoning, feel free to jump in.
Run blocking helps.
Well, yeah, run blocking is part of it. I think it's because Trayvon Diggs was out of the game, so it was Deron Bland on Terry McLaurin's side of the field,
gotcha.
and Noah Brown against a backup corner on the other side. It would have been whoever would have been wide receiver number 2, and you could say, like, hey, why is Cliff not moving Terry McLaurin around and trying to get him matched up on that guy? And sure, you could try to do that, but the Cowboys could quite easily just have said, Deron Bland, you're going to go follow Terry, and we're not going to let Terry match up against our weaker corner. That would be my guess is they felt like Noah Brown against the backup corner rather than Terry against their best corner was their matchup, rightly or wrongly. And we'll get into a little bit of Noah Brown. The first thing I wanted to look at, I think Nick and I both picked up on this pretty quickly when watching back the film, was the pass protection. The Commanders this year have done a remarkably good job of helping their offensive line with pass protection, and they've played some really, really good edge rushers. And you'll see some clips here against some of them. Trey Hendrickson from the Bengals. There was Myles Garrett earlier in the season against the Browns. TJ Watt with the Steelers. And those three guys, when Washington has Andrew Wiley at right tackle, and they had the combination of Lucas and rookie Brandon Coleman at left tackle. And despite that, they were able to keep those three guys combined, had a total of 1 tackle and 1 sack throughout the 3 games. And that's a pretty remarkable job. And the way they did that, the way they went about doing that, is what we see here is they would quite often go to these sets where you would have Luke McCaffrey or Zacchaeus or another wide receiver chipping on one side.
They would even put running backs out there. Like you'll see where McNichols chip as well.
Exactly. And you'd have a tight end like Zach Ertz or John Bates. And as Nick said, Robinson or Eckler or McNichols will line up here in an empty set sometimes, and they will chip both of these edges to give the tackles help on both sides of the line. So this is one with McCaffrey chipping Hendrickson. Just to show a few examples, you get that chip. Suddenly Lucas is able to engage a lot easier. On this side of the line, you get a chip, and Andrew Wiley is able to help inside with Cosme. And because the rusher is heavily chipped and not rushing up the field, and you're able to get a nice solid protection. Now Lucas does end up losing this late, but at this point the ball is due to be out, and you can see the routes down the field are recovered, and Daniels has to scramble and tries to find something off script and does. Now this was a few weeks later against the Browns. Same kind of idea. They're in an empty set, as Nick said. Eckler's lined up here as almost basically a tight end. He's chipping off this edge. Again, it's Luke McCaffrey chipping on Myles Garrett off of this edge. And you get that chip help. Myles Garrett suddenly can't just burst up the field and beat Coleman for speed. Coleman still kind of oversets this. He shouldn't be quite so aggressive outside knowing he has that chip help, but they get away with it. And the idea here is, again, Jaden Daniels gets to the top of his drop, and he's got a nice clean pocket because they've chipped both those edges. And Garrett does end up, again, getting the better of Coleman here. But by this point, Jaden Daniels has worked through his progression and was either able to get the ball out or take off scrambling before Garrett could get to him. So,
yeah, I mean, the whole goal of it isn't to completely stop that rush. It's to slow it down. Like Myles Garrett is going to win. It's just, he's the best edge rusher in the NFL. You want to slow him down as best as you can so you can get time to go through your progressions. And that's what they've done so well.
Yeah, and the one I just ran through while Nick was talking there, where there was TJ Watt off of the right side. Again, they had 2 chippers on both sides, and they slowed down that rush, and Jaden Daniels was able to complete that pass.
Yeah, and it's why you've had, people asking, why is Wiley playing so much better this year? Well, there's your answer. Like, he's getting a lot of help, which, tackles need help against those types of guys. And he's not being asked to block for 4 or 5 seconds as long developing routes are taking shape downfield, and he's got no help. And so it's been very, very beneficial to the tackles. But that kind of leaves the interior guys a little bit exposed, as we're about to see.
Yes. So Dallas, going into this game would have scouted Washington and seen, hey, they've done a really good job stopping elite edge rushers from blowing up games and destroying their game plans. And how have they done that? And they've done it by having chippers on both sides and slowing down those rushers and giving Daniels time to get rid of the ball. Now, the thing that Dallas have that's kind of unique compared to the other guys is this guy here, Micah Parsons, can line up in any place that you want him to and rush just as effectively. So instead of having him line up on the edge where he's going to get chipped, they kick him inside and say, yeah, just go rush from the 3 tech and you'll be fine. And so what that means is you have the double chips off the edge, but they're not chipping on Micah Parsons. They're chipping on these 2 edge rushers who are significantly worse than Micah Parsons. But they're still occupying these 2 eligible receivers, forcing them to stay in and chip and work to the flat. And the tackles are still having to come out and block those guys. And what that does is it leaves these interior 3, as Nick said, exposed. And so the Cowboys add on to not just having Micah Parsons inside, they add an extra blitzer to get it to essentially be 3-on-3 inside. and they run this stunt, which I've drawn out here, where Parsons is going to stunt inside, the linebacker is going to stunt inside, and this defensive tackle is going to loop around. Now, what the whole point of this stunt here is essentially you want to get this linebacker pulling Tyler Biadasz away from Sam Cosmi. And you'll see it at the start of this snap. Biadasz looks to Cosmi's side and wants to help double Parsons, but he immediately spots the linebacker blitzing and he has to pick him up. And that leaves Sam Cosmi in space against Parsons. So we'll run this through.
Yeah, it's a way. It's just another way of getting Parsons a one-on-one matchup.
Exactly.
You know you're going to slide the center to Parsons almost every single time. So you take him away from where he's going to get chipped. You bring a looper from the linebacker to prevent the double team, and now Sam Cosmi's one-on-one with one of the best edge rushers in the NFL.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you saw there. Michael Parsons, and I'll just wind this back just to pause it at the moment.
Yeah, and another, again, he's expecting the slide to the right, so he's expecting he's going to overset. He's going to not allow to win inside, but if he's going to lose, he wants to lose inside because he's expecting help. But he doesn't have it because of the looper, and they made a killing on this. Yeah,
so you can see here, as Nick said, he's overset to this side. He's not going to let Parsons beat him for speed off the edge. He's going to let him win inside because he knows he has help inside. That's the correct thing for Cosmi to do. But unfortunately, Biadasz, as he slides across, sees this linebacker coming, and as he was getting there, he suddenly has to peel off. And then that leaves that gap where Cosmi thought he was getting help, suddenly is no longer getting help. And this guy is going to wreck games doing that kind of thing. And Jaden Daniels has to scramble away and ends up essentially getting sacked, but throws it away.
So real quick, gentlemen, that was a fantastic breakdown. That was very vivid and clear. And thank you for providing context with the Bears and Bengals as well. I'm just curious. So I clearly see what happened there. Is there a way to successfully counteract that in the middle of the game, or is that just too hard to overcome?
Yeah, we'll get to that. There is kind of ways. At a certain point, it is just Micah Parsons is going to beat guys. But there's better schematic ways to try to deal with this. So this was a problem throughout, especially the first half, but it did continue in the second half as well. And you can see, again, this is the exact same idea. Empty set. It's another third down. You've got Eckler chipping on this side, De'Ami Brown chipping on this side, and they just kick Parsons inside, and they run the same kind of loop stunt here, blitzing the linebacker, taking Biadasz away from Cosmi, leaving Cosmi one-on-one with Parsons. Now, this time, Cosmi is kind of expecting it, and so he doesn't overset to the outside, and he's much better positioned. He also has the help that De'Ami Brown stays in an extra long time on this edge rusher, and that lets Andrew Wiley slide inside and help secure that block initially before Wiley has to peel off. So they do still get some of the benefit of chipping. The chip isn't on Parsons, but it enables them to get an extra set of hands on Parsons initially. But the problem still remains that the interior three are suddenly put in a lot of space, and you can see that here. Like, this is a wide pocket, and there is a lot of space between these three guys.
Absolutely.
And if Cosmi is here having to work his ass off to block Micah Parsons, now you've got a lot of pressure on these two.
Yeah, and you don't typically have your interior three guys solo on three defenders. Like, usually you're typically getting a double team on someone there. But it seemed like every single third down they had three guys on our interior three, and it's tough to win that way.
Yeah, and so you can see that's where the stunt part plays into this. You can see Biadasz just trying to pass that stunt off to Allegretti. Allegretti gets caught on it, and Biadasz is kind of still committed to it, and that allows the looper to come around, and he's going to get free rush on Jaden Daniels. Now, they do a decent enough job here that Daniels is able to get a throwaway and take a shot, but the shot's not particularly accurate. As you'll see here, he kind of gets lucky that this ball isn't intercepted like that. Pretty much this was in the bucket.
This was the one turnover-worthy play that we had for Jaden that kind of went a little bit unnoticed.
Yeah. And I think this is one more here. This time Parsons is on the left side here. This is in the second half. And it's the same kind of idea. They just execute it slightly differently. And this time the linebacker blitzes again from Parsons' side, and he, instead of just looping around and attacking between the guard and the tackle, he loops all the way to the edge because you get both these guys stunning inside. And that helps Washington out a little bit because this takes a while to get there. But you can still see the effectiveness that it has. Now, Biadasz, again, looks to try to help Allegretti initially, and then has to worry about this linebacker blitzing. Now that linebacker loops around to the edge, but suddenly you're getting guys stunting inside and occupied inside. Now, because they had two guys stunting inside and Parsons trying to get inside, they end up all kind of colliding, and it works out okay for Washington. But you can see that blitzing linebacker is coming looping off the edge. But because he was coming from depth and it was working all the way across the formation, Daniels is able to find time and deliver a throw. And we'll see the better angle of that throw later in this set.
I was going to ask you a question. I think I'm seeing it here as well. So my initial thought is if there's interior pressure, shouldn't they, move in Austin Ekeler to kind of have a, running back protection in the middle? Is that how they adjusted in the middle of the game?
Yeah, that was they didn't fully adjust that way because they wanted to get to empty stuff. They've lived a lot in empty formations, but
they kind of had to live in those formations, and the reason Dallas had a chance to do all this stuff is because of that early down, errors that we were talking about the last couple of weeks, where they're putting themselves in unfavorable situations where you're in third and not really long, but third and medium, where they can come up with these sort of blitzes, and it just kind of, again, early down, errors lead to putting yourself in this spot.
Yeah, and so this is the kind of adjustment that you then can try to do, and they did try to do. Now, I think the Cowboys kind of saw it coming, and so they put Parsons back on the edge. But you see, Ekeler is in the backfield, and with Ekeler in the backfield, rather than chipping on the edge, he's able to insert in the middle, and he's able to pick up the linebacker that's going to blitz, and that frees up Biadasz to try to help elsewhere. Now, the stunts elsewhere still occur, and they end up actually getting what they want in the first place, which was a chip on Micah Parsons off the edge. But this is one way they did try to counteract it. But the Cowboys were ready for it, and as I say, that's when they moved Parsons back to the edge. And if he had come off the other side, then he wouldn't have had any chip help. But yeah, you can see Ekeler steps up. He's able to pick up the linebacker. You see these two are able to handle this stunt a lot cleaner than what we saw earlier, because it's more defined, because they knew that they were picking up those guys. It wasn't like, if this linebacker comes, I'm passing him off, I'm picking him up. It was, this guy's on the line of scrimmage, I know I'm responsible for it. So they're able to pick that up and pass that off a little bit cleaner. You get the chip on the edge on Parsons, who does still get some pressure against Trent Scott, but they do get the chip on the edge. Allegretti, his guy stunts wider, and Coleman's able to pick him up, and that kind of frees up Allegretti. Now, if Ekeler had been on the edge chipping, he probably would have just released free because the edge rusher drops off, and then that would have left Allegretti walking outside to this guy and leaving the linebacker free up the A gap. So it was good that they brought him in here. But this is a more traditional Mike Zimmer pressure with two linebackers in the A gap, and this is the way you typically would deal with it. But it's just to show that a way of trying to handle this kind of situation. And it's a pretty unique situation because, again, this guy, Michael Parsons, is pretty special in that he can line up anywhere and rush from anywhere. And not everyone can do that. But when they play the Cowboys again, I would expect to see Ekeler in the backfield a lot more and a lot less empty sets to try to handle that situation. So yeah, that was the main protection thing that I think Nick and I both picked up on and both felt was a pretty big issue.
It's been an issue for the past couple weeks as well, because while the Cowboys did it in a unique way to get that interior stuff, because they don't have the D tackles that the Steelers and the Eagles have. The Steelers and Eagles were able to just do it by simply just kind of winning on the inside. And if you ask any quarterback, any offense coordinator, the worst pressure is interior pressure, because quarterback, they can't step up. It flushes them out of the pocket. You get easier sacks, pressures for the edge rushers. It just breaks everything. At least if you get kind of pressure on the outside, you can step up and sort of avoid it. But interior pressure is like a death sentence for offenses, and that was kind of the big problem. And then it led to Jaden being a little bit kind of skittish in the pocket at times because, again, he's been getting interior pressure the last 2-3 games, and it's kind of led to some problems.
Yeah. So that was one of the big issues Washington had in this game. Another one that jumped out to me personally when kind of watching back and focusing more on Daniels than the whole offense was that the players around Jaden did not help him in this game. They need to do a better job of helping him out. Now, Jaden Daniels is a very, very talented young quarterback, and you do want your franchise quarterback to be able to elevate guys around him. But he can't force guys to catch passes. He can't stop guys from fumbling the ball. And I just wanted to highlight that he did not receive a lot of help in this game. So we'll start off with Noah Brown had a couple. We talked about him earlier. He had a couple of drops in this game, and they were both in kind of key third down situations. So this was the second drive of the game. They just started to get themselves going a little bit. They picked up a first down. They had a nice end around to De'Ami Brown for a 14 to 15 yard hit. They'd hit a read option play, and they got themselves into third and 2. And they run this little missile concept where the idea is essentially these guys are all trying to drag defenders away from this side of the field, and you get your quick in route from Noah Brown into the vacated space. And that's exactly what happens. They motion Zach Ertz across. They run this little missile concept where you see Zacchaeus comes inside and he drags the safety and the linebacker away. Then you get Ertz dragging the nickel away, and that opens up this space for Noah Brown. And you can see Jaden Daniels is already at this point, like Noah Brown hasn't come out of his break yet. He's just coming out of it, and Jaden Daniels is already in his windup ready to throw that ball. So he's trusting Noah Brown's going to win this. You could maybe argue he could hit this to Ertz, but he's going to his guy on the outside, probably the best matchup. And when you see that leverage of that corner, you can understand why he's going there. That's a very good ball. That's right on the money. It actually hits exactly where you'd want it to hit. It's right where the hand's in front of the face mask. And Noah Brown, instead of trying to catch it with his hands, tries to catch it with his chest and tries to trap it on his chest. And this is where receivers that don't try to hand catch it annoy the hell out of me, because if you're a big guy like Noah Brown is, you have longer arms, you can just extend your hands out, catch the ball in your hands, and secure it. Instead of letting it get into your body where it can take a weird bounce if you don't quite trap it at the right time. And that's what happens here. He doesn't quite trap it at the right time. It bounces off his chest and he drops it.
Unless you're Terry.
Unless you're Terry, yeah. Somehow Terry manages to avoid that issue.
Let me throw 2 questions at you, gentlemen. So for one, we talked about Cliff Kingsbury last week and how the players were getting open. I'm curious, did this week affect your thoughts on his offense by any means and Jaden's progression? That's question number 1.
It didn't massively impact it. Now, as I say, there were some things that Cliff, I'm sure, would want back, and there was some. I had more issues with his play calling in this game than I had in previous games, but that was more. They had a clear game plan, and I would just question why they went in certain directions, and so that would be more that rather than like, oh, this is real predictable and everyone's caught on to what he tries to do now. And gotcha. So yeah, I'm not too worried about that. I think it was more the game plan design wasn't necessarily as good as it could have been for this.
I kind of land in the same boat. Like the pressure stuff is obviously something we already talked about, but he's been using that chipping technique for pretty much a whole year now. And eventually teams are going to catch on to it, and you have to be able to kind of adjust quicker to how you want to fix that. Another thing here is, I don't know if this is going to be the topic here, but the answer can't always be a hitch on third down. It seems like every single third down, we're throwing a hitch to Noah Brown. And that seems to be the answer almost every single time. And that can't continue to be the answer, especially because Noah Brown's very good at what he does. He's a possession type receiver, good run blocker. You're not going to ask him to consistently win one-on-one in these routes to separate and gain enough separation where you can have a nice, easy, clean catch. And all of his catches are going to be pretty much contested catches. And we saw that was a problem last week, and it has been in the past. So that's kind of one of my biggest gripes, is that this can't always be the answer, especially when we have man coverage like this. We can't just rely on hitches to the outside. Like, we got to be a little bit more unique than that.
So here's my second question, and I understand you guys see the game differently than I do. So watching the game, I was in person. It seemed like there's a reluctance to take shots downfield, more of a horizontal passing game, and pretty predictable run game, like on first, second down with Austin Eckler coming up the middle. Do you guys see it the same way? Did you find that like there was a lack of creativity, or what was your thoughts on the calling of the game?
It's hard to take shots down the field when
no time.
You have the protection issues that they had.
Okay.
So that makes it difficult to do that. They also don't really have the receivers that will win consistently down the field outside of Terry McLaurin. So they don't have the protection. They don't have the receivers. It's not really a great recipe for attacking down the field, and that's why this season we haven't really seen them being able to do that. So yeah, the run game stuff I haven't got on in this set of clips, but generally speaking, the run game has been better. In this game, they made a conscious decision that they were going to run a hell of a lot of read option and try to win that way.
Which I really like. Like, you have, like, we've talked multiple times on this, that Jaden, he's a cheat code when it comes to short yardage downs, like 3rd and 2, 4th and, like, that's why they were 9 for 9 on 4th downs to start the season.
Yeah.
You have that cheat code. I don't understand why they're hesitant to use it more often. And I felt like they were a little bit hesitant in the first half to use that. And I think in the second half, they came down, and that opening drive was read option on almost every single play with Jaden.
I had it on that drive. I think it was 10 plays. And I think
it was almost every single play. And it was a mix of him keeping it, him giving it. And that's what makes your offense so dangerous.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, and now Cliff's the whole offense has come up with some really cool run game designs. I think at times they get a little bit too chaotic. Like, there was one play in the first half where they said, screw it, we're just going to pull everybody on this concept. And it didn't work at all. And then that backs you up and all that sort of stuff. So I think sometimes it's easier to just let Jaden, be that dynamic athlete. And you see it sometimes. The Ravens still do it with Lamar. They still use him in that read option game. And you just have to trust them to make the right decision.
Got it.
Yeah. So, and I've got some stuff at the end of this on Jaden being more explosive as a runner, and a lot of his carries. So we'll dive into that a little bit more in a bit. But going back to the point I was making with the offense around him not helping, like, I understand Nick said this can't be the answer every time, and I agree, they do rely on this a little bit too much. But at the same time, this was available.
It has worked in the past. I just think you can keep going. I just think you're relying on something that it's just tough to consistently pull out.
I understand that, and I don't disagree with that. I would definitely like to see them diversify a little bit, but in this situation, it was there. So again, 3rd and 7. This was a lot later in the game, and they had, I think this was midway through the third quarter. They scored on the first drive out of the half, and then they went 3 and out. And this one, the Cowboys had just scored, and suddenly it's okay. We need to get some momentum back on our side, so we need to get a drive going. And on 3rd and 7, you run this little curl hitch thing to Noah Brown on the top here. You get this one-on-one on the outside, and when Jaden hits the top of his drop, he's trusting Noah Brown to win this, and he's immediately beginning his throwing motion as Brown's getting into his cut. And Brown does not run this particularly well. He plays this really soft instead of coming hard out of the cut. The first down marker, just for the point of reference, is here. It's the 45. So he's 5 yards, 6 yards even beyond the line of scrimmage. So he can afford to give ground, make the catch, and still get the first down. But he doesn't give ground. He kind of just lazily comes out of his break, and that allows the DB to get closer to him and stay close to him. Now, that in itself isn't the biggest issue. The biggest issue here is that Jaden, again, puts this ball in a really good spot, and it's going to hit Noah Brown in the face mask. And once again, it goes straight through his hands and hits him in the face mask and gets dropped. Now, again, that you can say, oh, that's really tight coverage. And sure, it was pretty tight coverage. Brown needs to do a better job of coming back to the ball there. And even if he doesn't, he's a big receiver. He gets both hands on that ball. He can't let the ball go through his hands multiple times in this game and then hit him in the face mask and drop it. Like, he's got to make a play there.
So this was one of the reasons I don't really like this constant, hit the hitch. And it's not on Cliff. I mean, we saw Zach Ertz open in the middle field there, but it's trusting Noah Brown to consistently separate like that. And again, this is not a shot. This isn't hate Noah Brown week. I thought he had a really good game outside of these 2 drops. We did not chart this as a drop. We charted this as tight coverage, which, like, on there you can see the hand in the face, hand at the ball at the catch point. But again, in terms of like separating, he loses his separation there by not, like you said, not coming back to the ball. And that's the problem with those types of routes, is that you need guys to consistently win. And if you have, a Terry on one side and then, another 1A type of receiver on that other side, you can do that a lot more often. I just think you're just relying on something right now that it's just a lower probability, I think.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Well, I do disagree that I think it was a drop.
I'll put you in touch. I'll put you in touch with the guys that reviewed it.
I went back and watched the broadcast replay angles, and it quite clearly goes straight through his hands before the DB's hands get there. Now, if he had caught the ball and then the DB comes and swipes down and knocks it out, that's a different thing. That you can say the DB does a good job of breaking the pass up, and it may well have happened that way. But before the DB's hands swiped through, the ball burst through Noah's hand and hit him in the face again. So yeah, that it's a drop in my book. But the point is to say another opportunity missed, and another one where the players around him aren't making plays. This is the interception. It was a running back screen. They have not been able to set up a running back screen in about a month and a half, and it is incredibly frustrating. But
it's like ever since the flea flicker screen, they just haven't had
it's cut it off
to do anything.
Yeah.
Should he have thrown this ball though? I feel like it was covered. I guess he'll break it down. We'll see.
Yeah. So they motioned McCaffrey outside. They'd shown that look earlier. This is all to try to get the coverage, thinking this is a variation of what they'd run earlier. And they just set up the screen. Now they have a lot of issues here. One, you have this linebacker that initially lined up as a linebacker and motioned to the edge just before the snap. Brandon Coleman, I think, does the right thing here of sliding inside and picking up the defensive end, but that means this guy comes free off the edge and Jaden Daniels has to be responsible for him. Now, that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world on a screen, because you want everyone rushing to Daniels so you can just throw it over them. But when the guy's coming off the side away from where you're trying to run the screen, it just means Daniels has to be hurried and buy a lot of time. Now that's one factor. You can overcome that. Factor number 2, Sam Cosmi gets beat inside, or not necessarily beat. He's trying to let the guy get past him, but because the guy stunts inside, he ends up stunting right into Robinson's lane. And that means that Robinson then gets caught up in traffic and is late to release out. So that, combined with the fact that Jaden is now being hurried by a free rusher, throws off the timing of everything. Now, the other part of this is your best 2 and most athletic linemen are Tyler Biotish and Sam Cosmi, and they're both caught trying to block guys. And your least athletic lineman is Nick Allegretti on the back side of this, and he's the one that's able to get out, try to set up this screen. So there's a lot going on here. Again, you can see Robinson, he wanted to escape out here and get out here, but because that defensive lineman stunts inside, that takes out his lane. Jaden Daniels is desperate to get rid of this ball because he's got a free rusher coming at him. He's trying his best to extend this play, and he scrambles outside, and he sees Robinson flash out late, and he makes the throw. Now, Brian Robinson, this is not an easy play for a running back because they're not the best pass catchers, and he had just been, delayed in where he was trying to get to. He was rushing to get back out to his point after his knocked off his path. He turns back and suddenly the ball is being fired to him with Daniels under pressure, but he does get both hands on the ball. And instead of making the catch, he bobbles it up, and it just so happens to bobble up straight into a defensive lineman's arms and is intercepted. And we'll see it from the end zone angle again. That you see he wants to get up and out that way, and then suddenly he has to adjust and gets caught in the traffic. And in an ideal world, he's already out here, and Daniels is just able to dump it off to him. Now, they still have an issue in that Nick Allegretti has got to try to block two of these guys that are much more athletic than him, but at least it would be a completion and a minimal gain rather than what ends up happening, which is both hands on the ball, bobbles it up, and almost says, "Here you go, you have it," and he gets intercepted. So again, another play where his teammates are not doing a great job of helping him.
This one.
Here we go. Yeah.
This one broke me.
Yeah, this is it.
Yeah, they later in the game, fourth quarter, offense.
This is a really well-designed play too. I like this.
Yeah, they'd been really struggling to get going. So Cliff calls a really nice play-action pass. They pull Tyler Biotish to the edge to help sell this kind of crack toss kind of thing. Noah Brown's a line short, and quite often you'll see a crack toss with a big receiver like this, a line short, ready to crack the edge, and you pull guys to the edge and you run a crack toss outside. So that's what they fake. They even have the small detail of John Bates is in instead of Zach Ertz, and that's again a run tell to the offense that, okay, well, John Bates is in, he's probably not going to be running around trying to catch a pass. And you see,
and they assumed correctly he should not have been running around and catching.
Well, we see why he typically doesn't. So we fake the crack toss. We pull Tyler Biotish. The linebackers all bite up really heavy on this run fake. That leaves a nice big hole right over the middle of the field for John Bates to run into. And Daniels sets up real quick, fires it over, hits him perfectly in stride. And at this point, you're thinking, oh, what a nice play. We're going to get a first down. He's going to pick up a few yards after the catch. We're finally rolling and we can get something going. And then he doesn't tuck the ball away and he gets it knocked out. And it just kills you. Again, great design. Get the linebackers out of the way. Daniel sets up good anticipation, trusting that, he's begun his throwing motion here. Bates hasn't cleared the defender, but he knows he's going to. He can see that space. Hits him perfectly in stride. Bates doesn't have to break stride at all. He can just turn straight up the field. And he just gets it knocked out, and they lose it. And it's just an absolute backbreaker. And just to harp on the point, just that little bit extra, that the players around him are not helping him make plays right now. And it's not just the lower guys on the roster. This is Terry McLaurin, and they're running that little hitch thing that Nick hates so much. And this one is kind of incredible to me. I'm just going to run it on, and I'm going to pause it where Terry catches this ball. Right there.
Yeah.
He is, 8 yards down the field from the line of scrimmage. He's three-ish yards away from a first down. If he catches this ball and just gets tackled, he gets forward progress, and it's 2nd and 3. Oh. Now, Terry being Terry is obviously a competitor. He wants to try to break free of the tackle and go make some yards. But at this point, he needs to have the awareness that if he just goes down and surrenders and is tackled, he picks up 7 yards rather than gets tackled back here. But by getting back up and getting on his feet, he now has to face multiple defenders that have rallied to the ball and has lost his forward progress. He's now got to try to make it himself. And at this point, he's behind the line of scrimmage. This line here is the line of scrimmage. So he's 2 yards behind it. So he has to fight tooth and nail just to get back to the line of scrimmage. So on a play that should have been a nice 6 or 7 yards for it set up 2nd and medium, 2nd and short, suddenly it's 2nd and 10.
Yeah, it's kind of sums up the day it was. Like usually when you get a wide receiver to break a tackle after a catch, it usually leads to positive yards, not -7. And then again, you're putting 2nd and long, and you're kind of screwed at that point.
Yeah, and it wasn't just the receivers or the skill position guys either. Here we have a play where just before the snap, Jaden Daniels sees the safety walking down towards the line of scrimmage, and he says, "Okay, well, that safety's come down to the box. We don't quite like the look that we're facing here. I want to change the play, or I want to make an adjustment at least." And you can actually hear on the TV broadcast, he makes the call easy, which is what quarterbacks do when they want to alert the offensive line. We're not snapping the ball here. We want to reset stuff, and then we'll reset and snap the ball. Now, everyone else on the offense understands that this is an easy call, and we don't want to snap the ball. Unfortunately, Tyler Biotish, the guy that's responsible for snapping the ball, does not register that it's the easy call, and he snaps it straight back. Now, Jaden Daniels does a really good job of not turning this into a complete disaster. He catches the snap. He tries to take off running. His receivers are like, "Oh, crap, we got to run." And he ends up getting nearly back to the line of scrimmage and not losing much. That could have been a way worse play. But again, it's an example of an offensive lineman not helping him out. And this is one more example where we talked about earlier with the Cosme play where he got beat inside with Michael Parsons. He was expecting help inside, and so if he's going to lose, he has to lose inside because that's where his help is. You want him to overset outside to take away the speed rush. Now we're in the exact same situation here, but just flipped. So Nick Allegretti is working against Michael Parsons out here. The linebacker is off the line of scrimmage. He could be a threat to blitz, but he ends up not blitzing. It's just a 4-man rush, which means Nick Allegretti should be expecting the help from Tyler Biotish sliding his way. And Tyler Biotish is there to help him. So, of course, like we just talked about, Allegretti cannot get beat outside here. He needs to overset. He needs to cut off this edge. He needs to force Parsons back inside to his help, and then they can get 4 sets of hands on him. And
was this late in the game? Was this second half?
Yes.
Okay.
And so what we see happens here is initially you can see Allegretti is doing what he's meant to do. He gets his arm out to almost be like, "I'm touching Coleman, you can't get through here. This gap's not open." He's taking a big kick step to try to close out that gap. But he makes a major mistake. Parsons, you can just see his foot here. He throws a little jab step inside, and Allegretti bites really heavy on that. He doesn't need to. He's got Tyler Biotish here to help him. That's what Biotish is there for. We want to force it. If we're going to lose, we want to lose inside. We have help there. We cannot allow Parsons to get back outside here. Parsons is a way better athlete than Nick Allegretti. So if Nick Allegretti bites on this jab step, he is not going to be able to stop his feet and get back outside. And that's exactly what happens. Parsons is able to get back outside of him. And suddenly Allegretti is losing to the edge. Tyler Biotish, bless him, tries his best to make up this ground and get him and save his teammate. It's just not possible. And Parsons is able to get a sack.
It's great
so
for Parsons.
all that's to say, the guys around Jaden Daniels did not help him on Sunday, and Washington needs to do a better job. Like, yes, it's year one of a rebuild, and they do lack depth and talent, but the guys that are there need to put in a better effort than what we saw on Sunday. They need to do more to help their quarterback because this guy is really talented. This guy has proven that he can pull off miracle plays and keep you in games and give you a chance to win every single game you play. But that only happens.
Some of the throws he made in the fourth quarter were ridiculous.
Yeah, we'll hopefully get to those if we have time.
If you get to the one, I think it was my favorite. It was a curl, or no, I think it was a dig to Diami. I think.
Yeah, I got
that. That was one of his best throws of the year. With anticipation.
So I've got some of those. I'll quickly get through this little batch of plays. I just wanted to show the real encouraging thing out of this game. Like, yes, the game was terrible and they lost the game and it's a real bad moment. But the most important thing is Jaden Daniels looked the most healthy as he has in weeks. And he finally looked really explosive again. And that meant that they could lean on him as a runner. We talked about earlier, they used a lot of read option plays in this game. And that threat of him as a runner was the best it's been in a while. And like they showed it off early. This is the opening third down. I think it was like 3rd and long. And they I don't know if he checked into this or whether he checked the direction that they were going to run. But the Cowboys come up with that famous double mug look that Mike Zimmer has spread around the league. And against this look, the Cowboys will do one of two things. They'll send the house or they will bail everyone out. And if they're bailing everyone out, these guys at the snap will just turn and run to their spots. They won't be focused on trying to rush. They will just turn and run to try to drop into their coverage spots. Washington obviously knows this, and they see an opportunity that if they get this look once in the game, you might be able to run what they have is a speed option into it. And so it's a gutsy call, but you can see
you got to be right. You got to be right that they're dropping out, because if they don't drop out,
it's a disaster. Absolutely,
this is when the fans start booing.
Yes, but you can see Jaden Daniels sees this double mug look, so he goes up to the line. He goes easy. Tyler Biotish listens this time, and they don't snap the ball, and they either check into the play or they flip the direction of the play. One of the two, and then they get ready, they get set, and they snap. And what do you have? You have defender dropping out. Backside guys, doesn't really matter. They're getting cut off, and Jaden's going to run away from them. But the important part is you get guys bailing out. And what that means is suddenly you've got linemen running towards guys that are running away from them, which is kind of a comical thing. You don't see that very often in the NFL. But yeah, you get a speed option. So Jaden Daniels is running it himself, or he can pitch it out to Jeremy McNichols. Austin Eckler,
50 still hasn't figured out that it's a run yet.
Yeah, look at him. Where is this going? So Jaden Daniels could pitch this, but this is where the encouraging part comes in, because I think Jaden Daniels for the past few weeks sees this guy and pitches it because he does not want to get touched. But Jaden Daniels, fully healthy, is going, I'm not going to get touched. I'm just going to skip by him because I'm a better athlete than him. And that's what he does. He skips by him. And at this point, I'm thinking, this is a touchdown. Now, he has this weird thing at the end of runs where he kind of runs into his blockers. Terry McLaurin could do a slightly better job here, but he does enough to kind of get in the guy's way. If Jaden just goes, I think he potentially houses it.
I think he's been kind of like, even before the Carolina game, like they've been ingraining get down so much in his head. And we saw in college that he just didn't get down. And so now he's like kind of in between two thoughts where he's like, okay, I can take this for another 10 yards or so, but I know they want me to get down. And so then he kind of panics. And that's why we saw in the Carolina game where he just kind of panicked and got completely rolled up on. And so I think he's in two kind of minds there with getting down or trying to get an extra 10, 12 yards.
Yeah, exactly. So that was a really encouraging start. And then we what we talked about is they kind of unlocked their cheat code again, where this one is 3rd and short, 3rd and 3, and you can just go with read option. And you're going to read the unblocked defensive end, you're going to arc the guy around him, and you can either hand it off inside or Jaden Daniels can keep it himself. And this defensive end, he's going to see Ben Sinnott working outside, and he's going to think, oh, this is a pass, I need to run out. And suddenly we've got this nice big running lane for Jaden Daniels. Now, like, at a certain point you're thinking Jaden Daniels is just going to go sprint up this and take this to the house. But again, it's 3rd and 3. You're just looking to get the first down. And the defenders kind of peel back into it, and they get a good job pursuit from the backside. But the important thing is they had a lane, and Jaden Daniels was able to pick up the first down, move the chains. Later in the game, you got our friend Michael Parsons here. He's going to be red. And this is, again, just confirming that Jaden Daniels has his explosiveness back. Michael Parsons here being red, stops his feet. At this point, it's athlete versus athlete who can get to the corner first. And not many guys can get to the corner before Michael Parsons. And then a few plays later, we see the read option touchdown. And this was quite a nice scheme. You see an unbalanced line. We talked about unbalanced stuff last week. And this is a new layer that Kingsbury had this week. Sinnott in the backfield as a fullback. You're going to have John Bates playing left tackle. Brandon Coleman's over here as the tight end. And you're going to just leave the defensive end unblocked. You're going to arc Bates around to seal off the linebacker. Sinnott makes a fantastic block here, and Jaden Daniels going to read the defensive end. Defensive end's going to have no clue what's going on because first he's not blocked by Bates. Then he sees Sinnott coming at him, and he's like, okay, Sinnott's going to block me. Then Sinnott doesn't block him, and then he's like, okay, Sinnott's not blocked me. Oh, I see the running back. I need to go tackle the running back. And now Jaden Daniels is the one with the ball, and he's like, oh, crap, what am I doing?
Spin cycle.
Yeah, exactly.
And this was all on the same drive, right? Those 3 read option plays.
Exactly.
It was just they came out and realized, because in the first half they were running like this the scheme from the pistol. They were running this a lot, but they didn't leave a guy unblocked to read. And they were just, and that's what you were talking about, George, with like, the 2-3 yard runs with Eckler that you kept seeing, is because you're not involving Jaden Daniels, so there's no threat there, and you don't have that other option, and it's such a nightmare, and it's why this isn't related to film breakdown, but it's why it's so maddening on some of like the 4th down decisions and the non 2-point decisions where you've got a cheat code back there.
Absolutely.
And you don't trust him to kind of get those, and that's what's very, very frustrating, because I mean, look at this guy, right? We've seen him outrun Micah Parsons to the sideline now twice, and so it's there's not many people that are going to catch him like at all.
And Nick, you alluded to it earlier in the season. Like, I think the biggest strength of Jaden Daniels is the ability to extend drives. Earlier in the year, our offense was humming because we'd always get to 3rd down conversions because Jaden Daniels could turn the corner, zone read, speed runs, and so on and so forth. I don't know. I guess the injury kind of made him more reluctant to do so.
Yeah, I think the injury played a huge role. I think that was kind of the reason you saw some struggles the past couple of weeks. Obviously, the pressure we talked about, but he seemed healthy. I think the mini bye definitely helped him.
I agree,
and I think he's healthy again.
Yep, and that was what those clips were there to show, is that he has his explosiveness back. That last scramble at the end there, that was very much a play we would have seen from him earlier in the season, where he doesn't quite like what he sees, and he just takes off running, and he goes and picks up 23 yards anyway. So that's that. If you're going to take any positive away from this game, is that Jaden's healthy again, and that is a huge thing for this team going forward. Now, I did say the team around him didn't help him. Jaden also had a few misses, but you're going to have that as a young quarterback. But I thought, just in fairness, I will show that Jaden had a few misses. So
just let the miss play and let it run.
So
this one, I think they were talking about that he's expecting Ertz to carry this higher.
This is one where potentially you could see Ertz is meant to carry this a little bit more vertical, and he kind of breaks it off a little bit more, and Jaden kind of throws it more towards the end zone. If they connect on this, it's potentially a touchdown. This was the opening drive, the 3rd and 7 before the field goal. Jaden pulls the trigger, and again, he throws it out here expecting to go more vertical, and Ertz broke it off. Another one to Zach Ertz. This is a nice play. They've been using this 13 personnel all game, running the ball, and they set up a nice little play action here, and they get this sail concept.
And we've seen him hit this route a bunch of times already.
Yeah, we've seen him hit this a ton of times, and it's a case of this linebacker is sinking underneath it, so he's got to. It's not an easy throw. You've got to layer it, get it up and over that linebacker, but still not put it too far over the tight end behind it. And he just gets a little bit too much on it and misses it.
Mark, I want to jump on that if you don't mind. Sorry to interrupt you there. If you go back 1 second on that play, Dan Orlovsky on NFL.com, I'm sure you guys saw the tweet. He was saying that like this sail concept has been overused by Cliff Kingsbury, and the Cowboys knew what was coming, and it's a simple concept. Do you agree or disagree with that at all, or do you think? I mean, how do you feel about that?
I can see that.
They've used it a fair amount,
but they've had a lot to with it.
Yeah.
So it's not like you want to just stop. If they have an answer for it like this, and I think they cover this rather well for Dallas.
Okay.
I think you've got the corner sinking back, you've got the linebacker sinking back. You make it a very tough throw. But we've seen him make these throws over and over again. So like it's not like this is an overused play. He should have talked about those damn curls. That's what he should have.
Yeah. So like every team in the NFL runs sail like 3-4 times a game.
Yeah.
So it's a concept that every team uses.
It's because it works. Like
it works. It's a very, very common concept, and they've had great success with it. And like, if Jaden doesn't put quite as much on this, it's a complete pass for 20 yards. So to say that the Cowboys had it figured out, I don't think they did.
No, I think we're just at that point finding reasons to talk about the cliff.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's where you should be looking, really.
But to finish, I thought we'd look at a few of the nice throws that Jaden made, because let's remember that he's a very talented quarterback, and
just get to the dig, man.
It's coming. It's the next play. It's the next play. Okay. But let's get to this one first. So another sail concept. Look at that. He's gonna run the sail on this side of the field. It's not going to be open, Zachary. It's going to be well covered. And you just see Jaden does a nice job getting to the backside dig. And that's something Nick talked about a lot during the pre-draft stuff, that Jaden, good sign of progress is him being able to work through his progression on the front side and get to his backside dig.
Middle of the field throws. It's like why it was such a big deal in the draft process. And it's because it shows high processing. Like, it shows a high level. If you can anticipate middle of the field throws, it shows that you are able to process stuff well, especially when that middle of the field throw isn't your first read. And these are the throws that I always look for and think, okay, he's figuring it out. He's got it.
You can see he's dropping back, looking to his left here, where Ertz is running that sail route. But Ertz is kind of quite well covered, and they've got an extra defender in that area. So he decides, okay, I'm coming off that. I'm working back to the backside.
And you know it's man coverage at this point. And so you're just expecting your guy to win on an in-breaking route. I didn't see the leverage pre-snap, but it really doesn't even matter at that point. You're just expecting him to win.
Yep, and he ripped it in there and got a nice gain. And then a few plays later, we have Nick's favorite play of the game.
Did Orlovsky talk about dagger concepts a lot? Because that's another concept that the entire NFL is using a ton. Because again,
he did not bring it up.
It works a lot.
We've talked about dagger concepts forever on this show. For anyone that doesn't know, basic concept of a dagger is you have an inside receiver running a vertical clear out route. His job is to grab any safety and try to drag them deep and vacate this little hole underneath. And then you got the outside receiver running a deep dig into it. They're running
it's a great concept against a whole bunch of different coverages. Like,
it wins versus everything.
Yeah, cover 3, you're still attacking those seams. Like, quarters, this is quarters. You can play with their match principles here and get advantages. Cover 2, if you've got, like, it just wins. Like, it's just a great concept, and it's one of the throws that when you look at a young quarterback, is he making this throw? Because if you fast forward a little bit to when he starts to trigger, like, that anticipation is what you look at for young quarterbacks to be like, okay, he's got it. Like, he knows what he's doing. He knows what is happening from the defensive standpoint and from the offensive standpoint. He knows where he needs to put the ball. And this is such a big thing. And I think he's done it fantastic this year. So I want to keep, again, it's another reason why I'm a little bit lower on the curl routes, because I want to see him keep attacking the middle of the field. I think it's such a great place for offenses to live. Like, if you live in the middle of the field, it causes such problems for the defense. And yes, it is a little bit more dangerous at times. And if you're wrong on what you see, it could lead to problems. And we saw that last week. He was wrong reading the leverage on that quarters, but he got it perfectly right here. I mean, the second that safety bails out, he's like, okay, I got this. And
so just to highlight what Nick's saying, like, you've got quarters covered. It's quarter, half. So this guy's playing a half, but on this side, you're getting quarters. So this corner is responsible for the outside quarter. This safety is responsible for the inside quarter. And when you have that vertical clear out route that we talked about from the slot in the dagger concept, this safety has to respond to that. And you can see Jaden at this point, he's well into his throwing motion. He's about to deliver the pass. So at the end, Dyami Brown on the outside here is only just getting out of his break. So it's not that Jaden has seen Dyami Brown coming out of his break and is wide open. It's Jaden is anticipating that based on the coverage that's being run and the concept that's being run, he's able to understand, okay, this safety is attaching to this deep route. That's going to leave a hole in the middle of the defense. And my guy's running a deep in-breaker against a corner that has to play outside leverage quarters and can't get beat outside and has to also think about this vertical route potentially breaking outside towards him. So all of that in the split second, and he knows exactly what he's doing. He triggers on the throw and he hits it. want to be picky, it's a little bit high.
No, stop it.
It's a great ball. And Dyami Brown climbs the ladder and goes and makes a great play for him.
Like, this is the stuff that I love watching when it comes to like quarterback play. Like, because it takes me multiple minutes to figure out, okay, why are you throwing this ball there? And they're doing it in 2 seconds. Like a blink of an eye, you have to make that decision based on the tiniest little tells. And I think that was one of his most impressive throws of the season. We've seen the deep balls and all that sort of stuff, but like that right there is what makes me very, very excited.
And I think we can just fit in one more play, right? We have
this
to.
This play we can, man, for sure. This play we can.
This was supposed to be legendary.
It's still pretty legendary. It's a great throw. So they run double post wheel, which is something they've tried to hit a few times and not been able to. It's weird that this is the situation they were able to do it, but here we go. So double post wheel. Whole idea is to drag the defense inside with 2 post routes and hit Terry on the wheel route behind it.
Is that Terry on the right side of the field?
I know. What a chocolate. So they get to the top of this. Jaden Daniels has already hit the top of his drop and he stepped up trying to hit this throw. And what you can see,
look at that anticipation. I mean, it's amazing. So you get the safety having to respect both post routes. So he's not a threat in this. You see the corner that was deep having to respect Noah Brown's post route. So he's not a threat. He's got to, and you can see at when Jaden's delivering the throw, this guy's back is to Jaden Daniels. He's turning and running with the post route. He's not a threat to this. And so Jaden can then isolate on this corner. This corner is the only threat to this throw from Terry McLaurin. And at this point, he can see that the corner should be way outside and forcing McLaurin inside. He's not. He is inside, and he has his back to McLaurin, so he has no idea where Terry McLaurin is at this point. So based on that leverage and based on the fact that these guys are all occupied by that double post concept, he knows he can hit this ball to Terry McLaurin down the sideline. And he, again, at this point, Terry's not even clear of that coverage. He's making this throw based on the leverage of defenders. You can go back like a split second before, like he triggers just a little bit before that too. Like it's a ballsy throw. Like I would never, like, looking back on this, if he passed this up, I'd be like, okay, that makes sense. Like he
takes the hitch here and then starts to trigger. This is where separation.
At this point, like, the safety hasn't even taken either of the posts. The corner is still kind of bailing, but he's like, okay, I know this is cover 3. It's a very, very deep version of cover 3. And so I can hit this. And it's stupid.
And it's a great throw. And then, Terry makes it a great run after the catch. And the Cowboys make it a terrible effort on defense.
Yeah, really, really rough from 24 there.
Surrounded by 5 players right there, guys. Look at that.
Well, so like 24 you can't lose outside contain. Like you can't lose that. He's getting blocked, but you need to force it back into other guys. And then Terry just outruns 6. Like, you're not catching him. 24 can't lose outside contain. And that was supposed to be the greatest play in Washington history. And still very upset.
The point to end on that positive is A, Jaden Daniels is healthy, and that is huge. B, he's still really good. He's still capable of making these insane plays, and he's still improving. And it just shows that if you get the help around him, and guys can actually catch a few passes rather than let it go through their hands and hit them in face mask, or snapping a ball when they shouldn't, or fumbling a wide open catch and run. If the guys around him pick up 5% and while making silly mistakes, Jaden's going to give him a chance to win in every single game, and that's hugely encouraging. And it might well be the case that for the rest of this year, those guys around him aren't able to make the plays. But you can bet damn sure that in the offseason, they're going to beef up the guys around him, and those guys are going to come in and be ready to make those plays. Yeah. And that's when Jaden will really take off.
It's disappointing they've lost 3 in a row after starting 7-2, but like, there's still so much to be excited. Like if we saw Jaden these past couple of weeks, like, really start to struggle and whatnot, and even in the past couple of weeks, he struggled a little bit, but him struggling is still like an average game for most people. Like that was, especially that fourth quarter was incredible from him. I'm not really sure what kind of flipped the switch there, but I'm concerned about this season in particular, but I'm not concerned at all about the future.
Yeah, you guys are definitely making me feel more level and more calm after watching the film at the end.
Coming from me is a lot too.
Yeah, exactly.
I think this guy is the real deal, and I'm trying to temper my expectations, but he's really, really good.
No, but you guys are definitely very logical. I was worried. I had some concerns about Jaden Daniels. It seems like he has a progression. It seems like he is throwing with anticipation, which I do appreciate. My concern and what my watch for moving forward is how is Washington going to react to the interior pressure when defenses have that blitz. I'm kind of curious how that will go.
Yeah, I think it's massive for, again, we keep talking about the cliff, and I think that's way blown out of proportion. Mark talked about it last week with some of the stuff that went on in Arizona and all the other stuff, but like, I don't think there's a cliff. Maybe we'll come back to this in a couple weeks and say that there was, but I still think that there are opportunities for things out there all the time. And like, they're still in a position where they can continue to put up points and win games. So I'm not overly concerned.
I'm glad to hear that. So I'll close it out on this question. I'll throw it to either one of you guys. Mark, if you want to answer it, doesn't matter either one. Is the game next week against the Titans a must win for the season?
For this season, I think it's getting close to that.
Okay.
You gotta snap this negative momentum, I guess. The losing streak, and I wasn't too worried about, like, this was the first game where you'd say that they lost to someone they should have beat.
Yeah.
Like start the season with Tampa Bay, that was always going to be tough. They lost to Baltimore. The Ravens are one of the best teams in the league. That was always going to be tough. Sure, they could have beaten the Steelers or the Eagles. You maybe would have hoped that they might have been able to take one or two of those games, but they're both very good defenses, both very good teams overall, and they were always going to be tough. So you don't hate losing. Well, you hate losing to anyone, but you can accept that those are good teams and just better than where they're at right now. This one was one where the Cowboys were really beat up. They're in a tough spot. Backup quarterback, backup guards, backup corners, and they couldn't get it done. And so for the team as a whole, yes, you feel like they need to find a way to bounce back and get some positivity going into the team before the bye week. If they lose this week ahead of the bye, 4-week losing streak ahead of the bye, I don't think we're doing a show next week.
Yeah, we take a time out from that.
So yeah, it's getting to kind of, for isolating this season, yes, it's a must win. But kind of just on the note that I wanted to try to leave on with those clips, it's still really positive overall with Jaden Daniels and what the offense can be. And that going into this season, we need to remember from a big picture's point of view, it's all about Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
If he's good, your franchise is infinitely better off.
That's what I was going to kind of add on with. Like, this whole season was about figuring out if you have the guy, and once you have that guy, you go for it. 7-2 reset everything. It changed expectations, and now we're in this mindset of, okay, we need to win now, which I understand. Like, you're in this position, you should kind of be going all in, and but slow it down a little bit, I guess. And you found the guy, and I think you can continue to build with the cap space you have and the draft picks that you have, and I think it's still a very, very exciting time. And next week's going to be tough. Like, the Titans defense is a lot better than the Cowboys defense, that's for sure. Jeffrey Simmons is going to be a problem on the interior, so I'm curious to see how they kind of deal with that, because we've seen them slow down some edge rushers, but we haven't seen them slow down some of those interior guys. But I think it's a good test, and I would love to see another 40-point performance.
That'll be fantastic. I would love to see that too, actually. Gentlemen, thank you as always. You guys do a great job of breaking down the film. Very, articulate, very clear for everyone to follow. Throw some humor in there as well. So I definitely appreciate you guys. I also want to thank the 838 people that watch us live on X or YouTube. I appreciate that. I also want to wish everybody watching on YouTube as well. Mark, a U.S. Thanksgiving to you. Have a happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Hope you guys have a great Thursday. Eat in, sleep in, or have a great time. We'll see you guys next Tuesday at 4:30, hopefully after watching the win against the Titans. Take care, guys. Peace.